So data man Nate Silver is at it again. He's twisting himself into a pretzel. He's contradicting himself, all in an effort to denounce Bernie Sanders' recent good news, which is that he raised over $25 million last quarter. And he did so, predictably, by raising money from working class people. People who identify themselves as teachers, as workers at Walmart and Amazon and Starbucks, and with an average donation of less than $20, about $18 or so. Bernie Sanders is showing that you can raise tons and tons of money off little donations. And this should be great news, because not only is that money, essential to run a long, winding campaign where endurance is important, but because you're getting it from small donors, it means that it isn't 5 or 6 people or a few thousand people even who are bankrolling your entire effort. So that it means that, you have a lot of money, but where's your popular support? When you raise money like Bernie raises money, it shows both financial and voting strength. So you'd think that Nate Silver, the, neutral data man that he is, would come out and say this is great. But here was his tweet today. My general view on fundraising numbers. A bad number can be legitimate bad news since it can jeopardize the sustainability of the campaign, but a good number isn't necessarily great news. Polls, among other metrics, are considerably more predictive of future success. Okay, that's fair. He might have a, consistent point of view here, and he's saying that, good numbers are good, but might not be the best measure, although bad numbers are very bad because you can't run a campaign without money. Fair enough. But let's look what Nate said last year to maybe show that the reason he tweeted this isn't because it's a consistently held view, but because he doesn't want to admit Bernie Sanders is doing well. Again, this is from August 10th of last year. The single most favorable indicator for Democrats in terms of their chances of taking over the House is fundraising, specifically individual contributions to individual candidates, which tends to be the most important / predictive measure of electoral success. So what is it, Nate? Is it, donations are good but not predictive, or are donations, especially small individual ones to individual candidates, the best predictor of success? Which is it? Is it somewhat flexible? Is it only predictive when it's not Bernie Sanders? Is it only predictive when it leans towards the conclusions you want, and it's not predictive when it leans towards the conclusions you don't? What is it? So again, we have data man Nate Silver here saying contradictory things about the same issue within 1 year, all in an effort, I feel, to try to denounce Bernie Sanders' recent success. Because again, in August of last year, he said the crucial thing is individual donors giving money to individual candidates. That's what we have here. We have Bernie Sanders raising the most money, and we have Bernie Sanders getting it overwhelmingly from small individual donors, regular people. And as the data previously shown, he does well in almost every corner of the American Republic. His donor base isn't clustered. It's not clustered in regions. It's everywhere. Bernie Sanders is finding success on a key metric according to Nate Silver. Unless you think this is a new trend for Nate and maybe he's just thinking things through, here's a piece from many, many years ago from Fivethirtyeight and Nate Silver. Here, Nate makes the case that Mitt Romney is struggling overwhelmingly because he has a dearth of small donations, suggesting that however much money he can raise in general terms, not getting small donors indicates a lack of passionate support. So there you have it. Data man Nate Silver acknowledges that whenever Bernie Sanders isn't included, good fundraising from individual donors is among the best predictors of success. But when Bernie Sanders is being included, it doesn't really matter that much, and other factors should be looked at. This is where people like Nate Silver, I think, start to show that they use their data to reach conclusions that are ideologically and financially and politically driven. I actually don't think Nate Silver is a bad statistician. I don't think he's a bad pollster. I don't think he's a bad polling analyst. I don't share this view that he made a mistake in the 2016 election. I felt that he was quite right in noting that, Clinton was the favorite, but not such a lock that a Trump victory was impossible. So I'm not ripping Nate on his actual data. What I'm suggesting is that he does his data analysis and then throws that all to the side when it doesn't serve his worldview. And so whenever it looks like Bernie Sanders is doing well, he will ignore the objective analyses that he's done. Nate's done good work to show on multiple occasions over many years that small donors, individual donors, are great predictors of electoral success. And so he should lean into that and say, this is a good day for Bernie. But of course he can't do that, whether it's because ideologically he doesn't like Bernie Sanders, or whether or not it's because 538's corporate affiliations do not like Bernie Sanders. He cannot give credit where credit is due. It's very troubling to see, because whether or not this does affect his, sober statistical analyses, people will reasonably start to think so, because it looks like he's twisting himself into a pretzel to avoid acknowledging that it was a good day for Bernie, and to avoid acknowledging that much like it was a downside for Mitt Romney, and much like it was an upside for the 2018 congressional Democrats, Bernie Sanders' individual donor lead and big fundraising totals are undeniably a positive sign of his campaign's health. So keep all of this in mind when you look at pollsters and polling aggregators and these sorts of analysts. And know that while they may have some value in the actual statistical data they provide, the narratives they seek to craft from that data are every bit as biased and political as any other form of journalist, maybe more so in some cases. Data journalism has real value, but Nate Silver is example one of how data journalists will manipulate the conclusions of their data to serve political agendas. And remember that as this campaign goes on, people like Nate Silver will contradict themselves, they'll be hypocrites, they'll be biased just to attack Bernie Sanders, even as, metric after metric after metric shows that he is still the best person to beat Donald Trump in 2020, and he is still the best person to energize and inspire and organize working class Americans.